Okay, good evening and welcome to the Crewe Town Council Planning Committee on the 24th of July. Do you have any apologies for absence?
Councillor Messens.
Can we confirm the item 2, no declaration of members' interest? Yes.
Chair, I ought to declare an interest because I am actually chair of Southern Planning on Cheshire East. I'm not a member of this committee, I've just come along to listen. I have had instruction from the lawyers at Cheshire East that that is acceptable as long as I do not make an opinion known in the course of the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that.
May I seek a bit of clarification?
You may indeed.
I'm very sorry, Joy. I just need to clarify, are you here as a Cheshire East member or as a Crewe Town Council member?
I'm here as a Crewe Town Council member.
That's great. I'll put that down as a non-pecuniary interest, but it won't be directly limited because as you're not a member of the committee, it has to be declared.
Yeah, I just wanted to come on and
That's right. Sorry, I just have to clarify.
No, that's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yes,
I don't know whether, Councillor Houston, I don't know if I need to declare an interest in that there's planning applications from Cheshire, well they must be from Cheshire East because they're about municipal buildings, aren't they? And as I'm a Cheshire East councillor, I've possibly got a vested interest, I don't know.
It won't cause you any harm to declare it.
No, but I'm here as a Crewe Town councillor, so...
As a member of the committee, yeah. I understand, sorry. Thank you. I'll mark it down.
Okay, well thanks for that. Item 3, can we confirm the meetings of the meeting held on the 26th of June? Yeah, okay, thank you. And I'll sign those. Okay, thank you. Item 4, public participation, a period not exceeding 15 minutes for members of the public to ask questions or submit comments. We have a member of the public. Would you like to make a comment, sir?
Yeah, might be here.
Yeah, whatever's best for you.
Yeah, so I'm sure some of you will recognise me from comments on good applications over the years. But I'm going to talk about Agenda 8. I've noticed about the bus service changes over the last 12 months or so, and how we can help. I believe I only have 5 minutes, but I'll probably be a lot less than that. And I'll be here for the entire meeting as well. So as most of you know, since COVID, bus patronage across the UK has fallen by about 75%. But in Cheshire East and Cheshire West, it has fallen much harder. We're currently at about 2 to 3% usage in Cheshire East, which is about 8% down compared to the UK average, which is around 10%. In fact, in all the metropolitan boroughs across the UK, Cheshire East has the second lowest bus usage in the entire country. With Crewe being such a dense town, it does have the highest bus usage of any town in Cheshire East, which is likely due to a lot of factors, including deprivation in the town and lack of accessibility to school and education purposes. However, since the start of the year, we all know that Arriva has closed their depots, which did not impact many people in Crewe in terms of their jobs, but did impact people in Crewe in terms of their services. Thankfully, a number of bus operators did come in and replace services, but of course this is an ongoing matter since this happened in April and we're now in August. We're in July, almost in August. Today, Cheshire East Council also published on their webpage that from the 3rd of September, First Potteries are cutting their number 6 service from Crewe to Leighton Hospital. So instead of the Underwood Lane area, which before COVID had 3 buses an hour, even before then it was more, it's going down to 2 buses an hour as of September. So in terms of just turning up and going on a bus, that puts people off because it's not that flexibility. But it's not just Underwood Lane. If you look at the Brookhouse Estates, they've had their service cut in half. If you look at Broad Street or North Street, their service has been cut in half, and that's since April alone, not since, I'm not talking pre-COVID or anything, I'm talking this year. The services across Crewe have obviously been in decline and we're at a very low level compared to the UK average for a town. Now I know Crewe Town Council and Cheshire East Council do not have the resources to fund bus services or to subsidise bus services, and that is not what I'm here to speak about. but I think communication about how to encourage people to use the buses, or how, especially think with the new bus station being built in town and hopefully opens later this year, maybe start next year, how the multi-storey car park can help use some of the funds to the bus station to help subsidise the bus services in Crewe itself. As in, Crewe has one of the highest parking charges of the whole borough of Cheshire East. But if that is a resource which is directly connected to the bus station, why can't we try and integrate it? And why can't that idea at least be expressed to the council, which I know you guys are not all members of Cheshire East, and this is not a Cheshire East council, but as a Crewe Town Council, maybe something that could be lobbied together. But another thing that could be done is an information campaign. In Crewe, we have 4 bus operators running services. Most towns only have 1 or 2, and that's a bit of confusion because ticketing is across multiple sources, and people won't want to connect and buy a new ticket onto a different bus company. But people also don't know their timetables. They may not know that it is easy that you can, there is one dominant operator now that you used to not be able to go from Nantwich to Leighton Hospital with the same operator. You can now do that with all the D&G, for instance. But why is there no leaflets that are going through by bus operators or by councils to let people know here are your changes to services, because it was such a big change this year, and so why not give it a try? And I think that's something we need to try and look at as a promotional campaign. So I'm here for the rest of the meeting. Probably won't be allowed to answer questions, but I am here, especially afterwards, if you want to informally. Councillor Bratherton did clarify some of the comments I made. As you guys, some of you may have seen the emails I did send to local councils about bus service provision. Councillor Hayes did correct an error regarding the 38 to Macclesfield service, which was introduced in 2019, not earlier that I said, by running in tandem. Nevertheless, that is still a service from late 2022 to now, which has been reduced as well. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Just taking some clarification, there's some good points made there. Can we bring, if they're connected with it, we have on the agenda at 8.2, changes the bus route communication, so they could, and 8.1.
Yep.
Would it be permissible, if the committee agree, that we discuss that now, what, on the contributions that Sean's made, and any bills we want to put, rather than
Yes, of
wait
course,
for
if you want to
another
bring that forward up the
thing
agenda,
or
that's
another?
absolutely right.
I'll move we do.
Is that okay with the committee? Okay, well,
Yeah.
thanks for that. Having said that, does anybody want to make some comment about some of the points you made? If I just first of all, that number 6, which only becomes the number 6 now at the bus station to Leighton, which is the Potteries bus, comes in as a 3,
Yeah.
then it changes to a 6. When it gets back to the bus station, it becomes a 3 again. So and that's the bit they're knocking off, isn't it? There's a 6.
That is correct. That's
The
all
6
not
used to go all the way from Sharrington to Leighton, and now it only goes there. So, and that's it. Well, that's me hearing aids, thank you. So, okay then, first of all, yeah, okay then.
Can I ask it's a simple question? I saw your email, I didn't realise it was you. Yeah. So, they're cutting the bus services, is it because people aren't using them, is that what you're trying to say? Or is it because people aren't aware of what? Or is it because the companies can't afford to run them? What is the reason? I'd like to know the real reason.
I don't know about that.
Like, yeah. Does anybody know that?
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I think most of us do,
I
don't we?
know.
It's not funded, it's commercial enterprise. So as Sean said, there's low numbers of people using it, therefore they've got very low income coming in. There are other reasons other people may wish to add.
Okay, then I've got you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I realise it's commercial, but I suppose the question I wanted to know, and I suppose you don't know from the companies, is, obviously they want to operate in the area, they want to be in Crewe, that's the whole point for the public. Is it a case of looking where they can rejig their company to provide, or do something where amalgamation, a bit like Sean was saying, it's not always a council thing, but maybe we could help them lead from a kind of different view. If you see what I mean, from a business view, to say, look, have you tried this, and would that help? I don't know, it's probably out of the box, but at the end of the day, I think putting services to the public, as indicated, interested in what you said. I think if we can do something not just monetary but assist.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, can I,
Councillor.
just to assist perhaps the councillor with the background to this, because we have to go back as far as 2017, really, for when the government was hacking away at bus subsidies. I have to put my hand up and say I'm not a bus user. I have, I wouldn't know. Sean, I wouldn't know what number came next, let's put it that way. But Hazel Faddis, of course, was the oracle of all things to do with buses. So I've been in touch with her, and I will probably read from what she said. So in 2017, a bus review of the services in Cheshire East was undertaken. This review was necessary as the government cut funding to local authorities. This meant that the council at the time considered cutting some of the subsidies for bus services in Cheshire East, right? There was a very active group of people who fought against this, the Save Our Buses campaign. The proposed cut to the number 42, which was the Crewe to Congleton service, and she goes into great depth about it, avoiding certain streets, taking on other streets. But the main complaint at the moment, as I see it, is that the buses that normally come along Broad Street and then turn up onto Bradfield Road and continue on that way have been slashed from 2 an hour, is that right, Sean?
Yeah,
to one an hour. Now you've got people certainly in the Holland Street area of an elderly nature who are finding it very difficult now to go and do their basic, even getting a bus to go up to North Street Post Office, which means then they've got to hang around for goodness knows how long before the one comes back again. You know, it's as simple as that. We're not talking a great distance, but we are talking a service. If they are able to walk from the Holland Street, the Broad Street end of Holland Street, down to the Underwood Lane, which is a fair trek, you know, for anybody, let alone somebody who's elderly, then they can try and negotiate that route with the buses which are running now. But we come back to the crux of this, that it's up to the bus companies where they run their buses. And I think the biggest problem, I may get the name wrong, but didn't D&G pull out of some of the routes, or was it Arriva pulled out and D&G stepped in? Now D&G are saying that they don't want to do them anymore. It was a short-term fix it.
First one didn't want to do it anymore.
Sorry?
First
potteries.
they didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And DGM said they're not going to increase in certain areas. They're
Okay.
going to create their services to make sure they're viable.
So the nonsense of this is we've got so many bus companies vying for the same sort of area of Crewe instead of having a consistency of travel.
Just for clarification, as you we have the D&G that do predominantly most of the journeys.
Right.
You've got Stagecoach that took over a route which Nantwich, they go once an hour and then they still go to Chester. But they operate, and their base of Stagecoach is of course Chester. That's the main into Merseyside and round. You've got First Bus, which is the Potteries buses, and they just operate the 3 that comes from Hanley to Crewe, and it's quite regular in the day. I think it's every 20 or 25 minutes. It's quite good. But then that since the reorganisation, it changes to a number 6 and goes to Letton Hospital. And then when on the return journey to the bus station, it becomes a 3 and goes to Hanley.
Yeah.
So
Nonsense.
where we've lost out is the 6 people who lived in Shavington, and also the people who live in the Manor Way area, which our colleague does, is that they've cut out. There used to be a 6 and a 12 that were operated. One went to Brookhouse and the other went to Shavington, but they went then into the bus station and off to the hospital.
Yeah.
What they've done now is the 6 doesn't exist with, apart from this First Bus. The 12, instead of going, and it used to go Broad Street twice an hour and then to the hospital, so it accommodated people living in that side of Crewe, if you like the north side of Crewe. that bus now goes down West Street. And what you've got now is a bit. I think it's not very good. A, because it's 1 an hour, and B, let me get this right. It comes in, the bus station is a 37, which is from Northwich to Crewe. It then changes to a 31. I use the buses, you see. It then changes to a 31, which then goes to Leighton Hospital, Winsford over, and then I get back to Northwich. So they made that is quite, yeah. So I think the people who've lost out mainly in the first instance is the people who live certainly in the Brookhouse area, Manaway in that area, because they've cut out. And there was a gentleman at a public meeting that I was at the other week that said that very same thing. He said, you know, as a guy that's on a stick, he said, I just can't walk now A to Nantwich Road or B to Gresty Road. He lives in Manaway.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, I think this consultation and where it's saying the bus route communication, they're the key things. But it's all driven, I think the 42 is the Cheshire East, they put subsidy on that, and that runs once an hour. I think it changes once every 2 hours. So there's lots of things. I think what Joanna said about an information and so on, I think personally, maybe there's more people using the buses now. It's stuck at £2 and you can get a journey quite a distance, but it's still £2 to get from Nantwich Road to the bus station. It's a short distance, isn't it? But you can, alternatively, you can get from Nantwich Road to Chester for £2. Or you get to Nantwich and back, actually, because there's rivalry now between Stagecoach. Sorry, I'm a bit of a nerd here. There's rivalry between Stagecoach and D&G, because it's now you can pay £2 and get there and back. So, you know, yeah, sorry.
But with respect, I mean, the numbers are mind-boggling in the as they are. The people who we're talking about here who are being affected the most are probably people who've got bus passes anyway. So this is not a financial thing per se. It's actually the fact that they have grown up, if you like, with an adequate bus service that is now being hacked at bit by bit by bit and taken away from them. And I don't know, but obviously we haven't got the power as a town council to help out in any great, I know you're about to put your hand up and say, well, maybe, but, you know, generalising, any more than Cheshire East have to subsidise buses, because at the end of the day, which of them would you subsidise? There's so many of them to blooming well choose from, you know.
No. So,
yeah, I mean, let's face it, this is about nearly the best part of 40 years of deregulation, since the deregulation of buses, and the opening up to the wonders of private competition, and that's where that's led us to the present pass, hasn't it? And funding, it's not just this, you know, the last year or two. Funding has been slashed over the last 40 years to public subsidy in the general way is not available, or not much is available. So, you know, I sometimes think this is an opposite, a deliberate long-term move. Basically, you know, let's wean people off of public transport altogether, which, in my opinion, is a huge mistake. Which only will prove to be so in a few years' time, at any rate, if it hasn't already. But what does strike me, anyway, is I could go on ranting and moaning about it indefinitely. But it does seem to me, if you're talking about any kind of public subsidy, the fault is that you can't, if you like, challenge the competition between the bus companies. But I suppose what you can do is say, right, well, as a municipality, whether it's the borough or any other entity or something bigger perhaps, like they've got in King Andrew's Kingdom, Andrew's Kingdom in Manchester, you've got something bigger. You say, well, we are going to run a public service and define what it is. But it needs the powers to do that. Because, I mean, we could talk about detailed bus searches endlessly, and it's all so fragmented, isn't it? It's just horrendous. But there can be, I mean, I'm sure in some towns there might be simple solutions. I mean, at one time I worked in Mornington, for example, and I don't know who paid for it, but there was a very useful little bus that used to run from the railway station into town. There was a circular bus that just went round and round and round, and covering a regular route. That's the sort of thing that, you know, there ought to be something of that nature in a town like Crewe, wouldn't you think? Which doesn't depend upon the private sector, which probably that can be publicly funded. But all of this needs probably huge changes in the rules and the laws that apply.
All right. Okay, I've got Kevin and then yourself, and we'll ask the question, what can we do? What do we want to do as a town council? Kevin?
What I'll do is I'll take you back to about 1989. The buses from Leighton Hospital to Shavington was 6 an hour. They were running 6 an hour. 1990-ish, he went down to 4. Now they're down to 2. But what we need to get to the bottom of is who authorised the diversion of the route from the number 12 from Broad Street down to West Street. Because D&G all along said once that Arriva would pull out, which I stated over 12 months ago in a meeting that they would pull out, that they wouldn't take on the 6 because they wanted to divert the 12 down to West Street. Now, there's one conclusion, and that is that the 12 isn't making money from the bus station to Leighton Hospital via Broad Street. So they've diverted the bus. What we need to know is who's given permission to do it and why. Because you can't call a 12 because that's the number 6, because it runs from Shavington to Leighton Hospital, which is an authorised number 6 route. But now D&G have suddenly decided that it's going down West Street, and then they replaced it with the 31 once an hour. And that bus either goes to Winston or Northwich. I think it's the 31. I think it goes to Northwich.
Yeah, it does that.
Yeah. So that bus has to go to Northwich, and instead of running it down West Street like it did to when Arriva was here, because the 37 and the 31 came down West Street. So you had 4 buses an hour running down West Street. Now you've only got 2. Exactly. Why have they done it? They've done it for a reason, but you can't call a number 12 a number 12 because it's not going up. It's not going up Broad Street, is it?
Anyway, I've got,
Oh, sorry.
and that's speaking from an ex-bus driver, so he doesn't know what he's on about. Do you want to sort of
I'll try and put
I'll
a
have a
bit
move
to it, but obviously it's only my viewpoint. To clarify a few points, the Town Council has all the powers it needs to operate a bus service. That said, the issue will always be money and which bus service to operate or subsidise. The way buses are run, as everyone has already pointed out, they are commercial operators and they will deliver a commercial service. Once they're non-commercial, that service will cease and they're under no legal obligation other than to give notice to operate that service. In terms of our speaker's point at the start there about communication, there may be, if members are so minded, a very significant opportunity for this council to progress that communication very relative for a council, very rapidly, and we could engage with the Cheshire East bus services, ask them all the details we need, and advertise all those services in a nice, accessible format. The fact that they're £2 unless you've got a bus pass, all that sort of thing. And that information may not be as readily available as we might hope, and that's something we can address relatively straightforwardly with a little bit of money and a little bit of time. The operation of buses, as I said, is an option, but having done it in the past, I would suggest the price will start at £100,000 and escalate very rapidly from there, and the £100,000 won't buy much of an additional part of a service, by the way. So it would be a very challenging situation starting a town scale crew. It's not so bad if you've got one small town and one service that operates in there, you might be able to address that. But in a town of this scale, you can't serve the whole town with the available funds.
Okay, well, I've got Tony, unless anybody really, and then we'll come back to Pete's suggestion whether we should have the information and lobby various people. Right, Tony, just wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's more or less what Pete said. I suppose the question I wanted to ask was, is it worth going to the bus companies to say, right, what would it take to increase your services? What costs are we looking at? I don't know. But I think you've already just answered that more or less, because you're saying it's going to be a lot.
It is a lot, and it'll be also diverse across the whole town, because you have to spread.
Well, I mean, I didn't know whether like one of the companies were more favourable than others, because obviously they're commercial. So, like, would one of them like to pick up the slack rather than the other ones? Like, which ones have been more amenable in the town and would like to? So they would pick up the slack, and we would fund just one of them to pick up ones where there's only 1 hour, which is ridiculous. I don't know, but it's a case of, is it worth?
I would say you're entering an area of
I know
real
it's
difficulty
grey.
because
I
no, it's not so much grey. Real difficulty because if you pick up that slack in one service,
Yeah.
the town is served by another 10 services at least, and in that basis, which one are you prioritising? Well, we're going to full consultation, are we going to spread the loading further? And also, there's a commercial sensitivity there. You'd have to go out to.
Well, you'd have to go to all of them. I mean, all
you
of
have to
them.
go to public tender
Yeah,
or
of course you would.
something.
Yeah, you'd go to all of them, and then
I think we're very hard to make it sustainable.
yeah.
Right, Martin, do you want to make a suggestion, Council?
Well, really, I haven't got a suggestion, just a reality check. We would all love obviously, we would all agree that we should have a good public transport system, and that we should be able to, that if you had a good bus service that was cheap and went where people needed to go and was well publicised, then people would use it more. In the past, years ago, when I worked for Nantwich Borough Council, we tried doing community transport schemes, and they were very, very expensive. The reality nowadays is local councils, town councils, even Cheshire East, do not have the money to begin to consider this. So as much as we would like to do something, then I don't think we can. As to trying to help people understand where the information. You've already got that information, haven't you, on Cheshire East? The trouble is that all information now is web-based, isn't it? It's on the internet. I don't think printing leaflets, because of changes, you'd have to keep, it's not feasible really to say, well, if we want to provide information, is that what we're suggesting we might print leaflets?
Chair, I think it's feasible. We've got enough notice boards around the place. There are contact points where people who are not on the internet or choose not to be on the internet can still view things. I mean, they're limited. But I do like Pete's idea that we contact the bus companies and say, look, give us the details and we'll put something out there. I think looking for stuff on the Cheshire East website can be quite difficult in itself. If we get something a bit more simpler, not saying that your site's simpler, but it is straightforward.
I'm going with simple, that's okay.
It is straightforward. You don't have to search too far, Pete. That's the good thing about it.
Okay, well let's sign that. So, we've got a suggestion there. Do you want to? I want to wrap it up really.
Yeah,
We've got
just use of social media is dead easy. I mean, Town Council's got pretty good Facebook and other means, and I'm not advertising anybody, but there are like Crunock News, even Nantwich News, and other online outlets. They'll print something if they'll share something so easy, and it's virtually it costs very little other than getting the information and sending it. I mean, that's something that can certainly be done. So I'm agreeing with Councillor Ratherton in that sense that Pete's suggestion sounds sensible.
Does that have support to get something out from the town council in a what would say more realistic manner, and building what actually Sean said about information and get it out there? I don't think it can do any. It can't be any worse than it is, can it? we do it.
It's a shame, it's just a shame it's not going to increase the number of buses, is it?
Well, it may, you know, let's be positive, Tony.
I know what you mean, because more people use it, they might put more on, that's what you're saying.
Okay, is that okay then, Cos? I'm mindful we've spent a good time. So thank you for that, you've stimulated us there, and we've got Joy bringing Hazel in.
For point of clarification, I'm putting that as a resolution against 8.2 on the agenda, is that okay, Jim?
That's 8.2, which
Yeah.
we just discussed,
Happy to
yes.
discuss, yeah. Sorry, thank you.
The committee allowed us to bring that forward. Okay then, let's move on then to item 5. Consider making a response to the following planning application. It's 23-2392, construction of a driveway gate, solar panel roofed walkway and open fronted carport. 54 Sydney Road. Is anybody...
Well, if I may, Chair, I've been online and looked at all these as usual. There are neighbour comments in support of this application. It's an improvement to the site. The highways have no issue with it because it already has the access in place. And there were no objections to take forward or comments. It's replacing an existing utility box effectively with a carport that's more sustainable and a gate, a nice gateway to the property.
Does anybody wish to build on that or make... no? So, are we supporting that application or not?
Just no objections, no objections or comments to submit, I would suggest.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next one, 23-2110, the vicarage in West Street has been withdrawn. It doesn't say why, it just said it's been withdrawn and been accepted on their website, on the website. So we're down to 23-2087, consent to display an advertisement B&Q branded signage. Does anybody feel passionate enough to make comment on that one?
It's not in a sensitive area, it's trade point, new signage, effectively.
Is that okay then?
No,
Shall we move on?
Yeah,
Swiftly?
yeah.
Okay. 23-1653, total fitness, external alterations to existing building, including erection of new draft lobby, etc. Recladding external walls.
Just Network Rail taking over that currently unused building. And that's what that's all about. It's not a sensitive spot right by the railway on Macon Way.
Anybody wish to make comment?
No, that should be
It's not
fine.
GB Rail headquarters, is it?
No, they've missed that opportunity, Councillor.
Okay, no. On a roll then. Okay, next one then. 23-2349, demolition of existing temporary industrial warehouse and construction of an integrated logistics centre, including a covered logistic route, internal amenity and office annex, and Bentley Motors.
Big warehousing being replaced with big warehousing.
One being temporary and one going to be permanent.
Yeah. The elevations look not the same, but in a similar vein, and the scale is slightly bigger, but on the site.
Anybody wish to make comment?
No, I mean, it's just making better of what it was, really, isn't it? So that should be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. We'll comment to that then. 23-2381, advertisement consent for 4 signs on proposed office developments, Arden Square. Street record, whatever that means. Is there any comment on that? Is it?
It's radius. Big commercial one that's already there. But I think it's new branding for the site. In fact, when I looked at the plan I've shown before, you could barely see the branding in the showing.
No. No comment?
I can bring any of these up if you want, but it's not very
I
expensive.
think that for where it is, again, that.
Okay. The next one is 23-2367. Proposal for repair of 2 municipal building main facade, windows, doors and wrought iron railings and gates, including replacement of 2 existing flagpoles and associated temporary works. I think we should bring that up because
On its way.
it's suggesting it's going back to the original in some ways.
the next application is the listed building aspect, so you've got the two parallel
To the end,
applications. We were going too fast, and the machine's going a bit slow now. Right, so you can see where it's lining out the different aspects that we use and represent windows, and that is the gateway. Sorry, that's the gateway there, and the doors associated. So it's about the different phasing of this bit of work that they're going to go to going left to right along the project, and repairing and replacing the frontage, windows, fenestration and doors, and the railings get a full repair as well. I don't know what else you might want to see with some other documents, but that's effectively showing you the bits that are going to be repaired. There'll be scaffolding along the way for a while. There's a design heritage statement, if you want to read it all, but it's been on there a while, so
No.
I guess you're alright with that.
Yeah. That's okay. We need to do it.
We'll go down a bit, see what's nothing. And that just shows the floor plan approach to where the windows are. Mating to the municipal building.
Anybody want to make any observations on?
No.
There seems to be a lot of detail on how they're going to put a fan in a window,
Yeah.
which wouldn't have been in the original, because apparently in the past they just put a fan in and that'll do. There's going to be a bit more thought behind it.
Yeah.
Obviously trying to improve the facade,
Yeah, so that's all in that.
colouring and the window painting and so on.
That's all in that.
It's all in that
Heritage
pack, isn't
statement
it?
there.
So
Yeah.
There's lots of detail associated with that, and it's going through the conservation officers and heritage, the listed building consent, so it'll have to fulfil all those obligations, which is an area I'm not that skilled in anyway.
okay.
I can't advise, it seemed fairly straightforward to me.
And does the committee agree there? That
Yeah.
it's-
That's
it's
right.
welcome, the fact that somebody got paint on it. Okay then, well thanks for that. 23, 24, 49. Outline planning permission for a new bungalow dwelling. Orchard Meadows, Groby Road. That's making somewhat what's 10 feet permanent.
Yeah, the main consideration here, whilst there's no objections from the neighbours, which is a positive sign.
Certainly.
Oh, I've gone the wrong way. Sorry, excuse me.
No.
Missed out for. We are considering an application in the open countryside. Is the from my limited view consideration. There is on that site currently permission for a static van, a day room and 3 tours, I think, off the top of my head. And it is occupied by, and has been for some years, by the family seeking to put on a small bungalow to make a permanent residence on that site. There are letters of support from neighbours, including the pack. And equally, there's a medical reason. This is a permanence, an adaptation from a static caravan as it is now there. Okay, that's the development boundary effectively at that point. So it's technically in the open countryside. No residents' objections at all to that. There were environmental health considerations, which I can't remember what they are now. So nosy. But there weren't. There was a number of conditions actually. I remember now. So they weren't in objection to it, but they did put in a number of conditions that they would like to see if a planning application is approved. Does anyone want to ask me any questions about it? Because I've told you most of what I know.
effectively, they put the bungalow on where there were two temporary static caravans.
Yeah, that one would.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, so that's what those two there being replaced.
8 and 9.
yeah.
And they'll produce
Yeah,
on that footprint there.
number 2 there as well.
Just ask,
Does anybody want
I'll just ask a question,
Comment.
Chair, that the, excuse me, it was said that this is technically open countryside.
Yeah,
What's the view of the local planning authority on that?
well, they're going to make a decision, aren't they?
Yes, I know they're going to make a decision, but I mean,
I honestly don't know.
I just wonder what their view is going to be. You know, is it justified? And I can just see this being something. Cameron's one thing, but a static at a full dwelling.
If I was in your chair, which I'm not, I wouldn't see this as a significant threat on the open countryside. Although it be the exception rather than the rule, I think I'd want to make that clear. It's a resident that's been resident there for a number of years, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years, and they now have a medical reason to need more permanence in their dwelling because access is a problem. And it's right next to a farmhouse, and the site itself is, I would consider, doesn't make it true, but I would consider it a brownfield. It's not in an open field. So I think it's less challenging than the normal consideration in open countryside. But I only make the point because it's in there to be
It
made.
can be argued then, that you mentioned medical reasons, that even if there were technically some objection, possible by a local planning authority, it could be argued that there are extenuating special circumstances apply.
This site has consent associated with gypsy traveller occupation, so it might be a condition that that remains the case.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be for us to dictate, but might be a suggestion.
Do you want to make anything, Steve, of that?
Well, I would say no objection, given the special circumstances that have been outlined, presumably in the application.
Yeah.
I think that would be positive.
Alan?
I have to say that because I've been away, I haven't looked in detail. I haven't had access to the internet over the weekend, so I haven't been able to look in detail at it. So I wouldn't like to, myself personally, I wouldn't like to say no objection unless I'd really looked at it in detail. I think it might be safer, unless we are going to look at it in more detail, to just say no comment.
Does anybody have an alternative view to that?
Well, I'm with Steve, I agree with Steve. I don't see any objection, especially in the circumstances, so I would go with Steve with it. And your comments, because I've read it, that yeah, it seems like more on brownfield than
Yeah, just to be absolutely clear on technicality.
Yeah, I know you're,
No comment, no objection, it's the same thing,
Oh,
the long
so-
and short of it.
yeah.
I don't write to the planning authority telling them we're not against it.
It's not
I think that's the point about no objection.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Bearing in
I'm
mind
with
special
Steve. No,
circumstances that seem to
objection.
apply.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's cleared that up.
Well,
So,
so no comment to no objections to saying. Right, I must learn.
I wasn't aware of that when I was at Clark Parish Councils. When it was decided that the parish council didn't have a comment, as the clerk I didn't submit anything for that application. Whereas if they have no objection, then I put that as an actual comment on the planning thing. But if I stand corrected, I'm happy.
It's not correct, it's just a different process.
Well, I'm happy to propose, should we say, no objection, bearing in mind, etc.
I'll second.
right, okay then. Do we have support for the what's been proposed? Anything against? One against? Any abstentions? No? Okay, thank you. Right, next one then. 23, 25, 25. Proposed conversion of existing dwelling to form 3 self-contained apartments together with new access, 354 Hungerford Road. I think we need to get that one up. We may have some comment.
There is already some very helpful comment in this one. So it is a resubmission of an already declined application. Representations from the public in objection, more detailed objection here, which associates with technical housing standards. The proposals are below the technical housing standards that Cheshire's is now adopted. Equally, there's contrary to policy associated with waste management, no clarity on the waste storage, and also associated with skilled bicycle storage, and amenity in terms of access to local recreation sites, as there's no means space for 2 proposed units. Equally, there's no off-street parking, so that's an additional pressure on local on-street parking, might be a consideration as well. Sorry, I think you want to pull up
We're going to look at as is and to be.
yeah. Not a lot of change. There's a number of roof lights being added, which
Oh, that's helpful.
well, Alright, so this is existing. It's a 3-storey townhouse dwelling, based on a very traditional semi with its nice bay windows at the front and some rear extensions, and then there we go. And then they've subdivided in the proposals into 3 units based across the 3 floors, with a single unit on the ground floor here, and then another unit based across 2 floors, ground and first, and though there's a hall entrance to the 3rd unit, which is on the 1st and 2nd floors, based on 2 bedrooms. That one, the other based on 1 bedroom. Access to the rear is achieved by, or the side and rear can be achieved by the ground floor accommodation, but not readily by 1st and 2nd floor accommodation. There we are. That's the proposal. 3 separate dwellings, 2 1-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom dwelling.
And the room sizes, are they, adopted?
The room sizes are below the technical housing standards as adopted by Cheshire East, is my understanding. There are changes to some of the fenestration, with a door being removed here and a door being removed here, and you'll see also roof lights being added to the 2nd floor.
Is there a fire escape?
No. Not that I can identify anyway. They just come down the stairs. Bring that. This is the existing, so you can compare and contrast.
So where's the back? Where's
The rear elevation? That's the rear elevation there. So that doorway will get filled in. I can't remember what else. Those windows replaced with the same. And then there's 2 roof lights added there, and that doorway gets filled in and turned into a window. Oh, there's a new window on that chimney side. Cable and so the submitted objections associated with parking, room size specification, waste management, cycle parking, and amenity I think are all very valid points to be considered. And it's previously refused applications, understand it, post conversion,
And if there's a fire on the first
or is it
floor,
not?
how do the people on the second floor get out?
No, it's not previously, sorry, I think I had a different application, excuse me, so it's a new application. Yeah, so you could also maybe have a concern over fire safety as well if you wanted to.
Well, I think, as I say, if there's a fire on the first floor, anybody that's upstairs in the second floor, how are they going to get out if there's no fire escape?
Comment noted there.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, go on, Marlon.
I just think we should object to it on what the basis, you know, it's been pointed out by members of the public on
Sounds.
their objections, you know, so I think that, you know, based on the size of the rooms and lack of no cycle storage, lack of the waste provision doesn't seem adequate, and other things that we've just said, I just think we ought to object to it.
Would you like me to clarify?
Mm.
Okay. So in the principles that were being raised, including Councillor Strain Francis, then it might be that the committee is minded to object to the proposals on the basis of overdevelopment demonstrated by the room specifications being below technical housing standards as adopted by Cheshire East Council, the lack of definition associated with waste management and the policies therein, lack of definition associated with secure bike storage, the lack of amenity for the upper floor units and the distance to play and recreation facilities. Concerns relate to fire safety across the 3 stories and how you would egress the building in an emergency, and the impact on amenities from neighbouring properties associated with on-street parking being exacerbated.
What he said.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's the usual catalogue of inadequacy. I'll repeat that catalogue of inadequacy. I see it all the time.
Thank you for that, Bill, Steve. Okay, so we have a proposed, someone's proposed that, and Tony proposed it, we got a second from, okay. All in favour then?
Yeah.
Any against? No abstentions? No, that's carried then. 23, 25, 34. Proposed alterations and ground floor extension at 137 Manor Way. Anything on this?
No.
Neighbours or...
Long garden, reasonable extension. It's ground floor, no overlooking aspect. It's got one of those new orangery type roofs aspect to it. There are other examples of similar extensions, and it's not a challenge at all. That
No.
happily bring it up, but it's just another
No, it's
single story
straightforward.
extension to the back of the kitchen.
Well, yeah, we,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm happy with that, yeah, it's fine.
is that no comment then?
I'm not making any comment.
Calm down now. 23, 25, 59. Prior approval of for the installation of the roof-mounted solar PV system, the Axis Academy.
I can bring it up. It's solar panels on the roof.
Crew West, anyone?
Solar
Crew
panels.
West, want to make a comment? Are you happy with that, Marlon?
Yeah, I'm not making any comment.
Anybody wish to make any comment on
Yeah,
that?
can we have it listed?
I think that says that we support that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the contributions there. Item 6, consider making responsibility urgent planning applications. And the first one, and the only one on here anyway, I don't know if it's got any more. Resubmission of a refused application, reference 224906, for 2-storey side and rear facing extension. The formation of a rear facing dormer and vehicle crossing. The mind boggles at that. I don't. Could you explain?
I'll try. property there,
Fairly
on
named.
the road there. Well, so this is a resubmission of this application. That notice of decision I'm pointing out on screen there says it's refused. The application was refused back in January. These are representations, including Councillor Fadder's representation in objection to it. And I'm bringing both before and afters, existing and proposed, sorry. Heading out towards Screw Green Roundabout, one of the properties on the right, not one of the Victorian style ones. There we go, so it's this side extension and then a rear aspect there. Compare and contrast if we can. That's the rear elevation right now, and that's going to be a dormer and an extension to the rear, as it seems it sticks out over there, which in floor print sort of way is that bit, and a dormer at the top here. That's what you've got existing. As you can see the drawing was there, the first flooring was there, and the dorm was there. There is no getting into the loft effectively, so there's no drawing of the second floor for that bit. And as I understand it, but please don't guarantee this, the crossing means being able to access a vehicle across the pavement onto the frontage for parking. That's my understanding.
Does that mean they want to drop curb?
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to drop curb.
Let's call it that.
Sorry, too soon.
So,
It was previously declined.
what has changed then? Greatly changed for it to be.
Well, I've never seen a resubmission before. I'm guessing it is literally they just put it back in to try again, because that it's all the same documents as were there in January,
Yeah, including the
So-
officers
including the officer's
For
report.
clarification then, Ian, you're suggesting that they've just resubmitted without
Yeah.
any changes, but they've been refused initially?
Yes, that's exactly my interpretation of what I can see on screen.
Why was it refused the first time? That's much of interest, sorry. Does anybody know? Carl's here.
Well, yeah,
in the officer's report.
that's a notice of decision there. So if we take a minute to have a nosy at that, there is an officer's report as well. The proposed dormer window would represent a disproportionate addition to the roof space, particularly because it extends out onto a two-storey extension, causing harm to the character and appearance of the area. Therefore, the proposal is deemed not to comply with policies SD1, SD1, SD2, Gen 1, Housing 11. So it went against a few policies that they had there. Proposed development, due to scale, mass and projection, would have an unacceptable impact upon the amenities of the occupiers of both adjacent properties, the east and west, in terms of loss of light and overbearing impact. Therefore, the proposal development is against policy housing 12. And there's some informative bits there as well.
When I looked earlier today, there was a comment on there from somebody who lives in Buxton Avenue, which says the words to the effect that there didn't seem to be many changes. So that wasn't the screen that I pulled up with the number that.
That's the number I've got. Is there another number?
No. I am mindful that you're there, Sean, but I can't really have you. But if you like to mutter some numbers,
It's
if
the
you
wrong
like.
application number. You're looking at the old one. The resubmitted number, which has the existing and proposed plans of what the application is, I can read out.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah, I have.
So that's
I have
23
noted,
slash
but
2699M.
Sorry, what was it?
Yeah, we've obviously got a glitch on there,
What,
thank you.
what was it? What was the number?
23/2699N.
Two six
You
nine
say,
nine.
it
Yeah,
does say
it's not
Buxton here, this is the one I've
Yeah,
read
I'm just looking at the old one.
today. And that Buxton Avenue suggests that it hasn't changed much, but there must be another,
Yeah, I guess so.
there must be another plan now. Yeah, so
That's the new proposal.
That's what I do, yeah.
That one should parking.
That's better.
So there's the side extension, the rear, and that. So we'll go down and see what the floor looks like. Which is so hopefully we can compare and contrast those two. It still seems to have retracted a little. There we go.
anybody spot anything that's altered there?
It's the front fascia into the way they've done the dormer bit there on the other look at the, so they weren't happy with the way that it overhung. That's different, isn't it?
That's the dormer.
Yeah, that's much
Yeah.
better than the other one.
They've aimed it back a bit.
Yeah,
I can't
Yeah,
identify that very much. There we go. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
one dormer. That's the one that was refused last time.
yeah, you can tell.
Just
Yeah,
laying that back there,
yeah, no.
still look out, wouldn't you?
So
It's
yeah, it's
just
gone
slightly
back to
better.
that one. Fine.
It was like they chopped a bit off it.
Yeah, yeah.
Still looks hideous, even though we've chopped a bit off it. It doesn't look any different, does
I
it?
don't think that's a planning term.
That's made a
No,
bit
it
of
isn't.
However,
Can I
It does.
propose that we resubmit our objection to it?
Well, it turns out we didn't object to the last one, but it was
No, we
declined.
haven't done it.
You
Well,
do
it
whatever
doesn't-
you see. You know,
it doesn't seem to, if that's the only change.
It is a
doesn't
little
seem
bit
to,
smaller. So they have changed it, which is thank you, Sean, by the way.
For the number. Does anybody wish to make any comment here now? Dennis? Did you say?
I just said that we would resubmit our objection to it.
But we haven't got one. We never did.
No,
one.
Oh,
Hazel
did we?
was,
Hazel objected as a councillor,
Hazel would have
but
been
the committee did.
Right, sorry, yeah, okay.
So you might wish, if you wanted to object. You object to proposals on them. It's not substantially changed enough from the past
Well, let's,
application.
I propose that we object to it.
Okay, well, Marlon, do you want to say
Yeah.
something?
I mean, we could add more, obviously, I'm sure the clerk can assist us in adding more detail, but there will be traffic issues, won't there? And there seems to be overdevelopment and it's still affecting a lack of, adversely affecting amenity for some of the neighbouring properties.
Okay, thank you. Tony?
I'm just going by the comments that were on the previous application, presumably the same from the neighbours, Paul, like with the neighbours, etc. So I would imagine that they will have gained much more light by making it.
Could you pull up the comments from the Boston Avenue?
The neighbour there, what in Buxton
To
Avenue?
see what it says.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's sort of said
affecting
nothing.
them, and that's not very nice.
Can't see any changes. The new designs are almost exactly the same as those previously submitted. This application represents no development of the site and will cause significant traffic and pedestrian safety issues,
Exactly.
which I
Could
presume will be
it
the cause.
include something
I don't know.
like that?
Yeah.
So you wish to build on the comments about traffic? I'll just put neighbours' comment.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So let's read that again and we'll just make sure we do it.
Okay. It seems that members might be proposing to object to this application on the grounds of it represents overdevelopment on the site, delivering adversely affecting amenity of neighbouring properties due to loss of light, the overlooking nature, overbearing nature of the proposals, The committee would like to reflect residents' concerns as submitted in objections and the concerns associated with risks to the highway on a busy main route into the town.
Is that okay?
That is, yeah.
You okay with that then?
Yeah.
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 All right then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 7, to note responses since. There is none.
None.
I take it. 8, we've looked at Cheshire East. 8.1, Cheshire East support criteria consultation.
Yeah, they issued a consultation which was circulated. If the committee has any formal representation to that, I haven't received any,
Right.
but if you wanted to.
Maybe members have done it individually through the consultation rather than...
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on then. So it's 8.3 then, proposed changes to ticket office, potential closure of Crewe Station ticket office.
Yeah, members will be well aware, it's been circulated a couple of times, that across the country, not just in Crewe, we're not being picked on, but it's still an effect on the town. The ticket office facilities at stations, now we're thinking about Crewe Station, are being consulted on for potential closure, potential being quite charitable, I think, in that phrasing. So I have responded to it personally. I'm sure a number of members have responded to this consultation individually, but it comes to this committee to consider if we're going to put in a formal representation on behalf of the council, which I would recommend to you. And equally, I would recommend to you that that should be phrased around an objection to the proposals and highlighting the value of human interaction, generally speaking, and accessibility requirements associated with dealing with an individual who may have need of great support that you won't get at a ticket machine, even if there are station hands there to advise you how to press the buttons. So it's there for a formal response on behalf of Crewe Town Council. I'm recommending to you, which I don't regularly do, by the way, we represent strong objections to these principles associated with accessibility, value of the service, representation of Crewe and the number of travellers passing through that station, and the principle of ensuring high quality service.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, and whether this is suitable for inclusion in such a comment, I don't know, but the changes ostensibly are to improve the customer's experience, and actually, as far as I can see, it'll only make it worse. And of course, we've all seen pictures of ticket offices where there are no queues, or at least no queues longer than, that fill the booking form. So it's ostensibly to improve matters for the customer. The truth of the matter is, it's all about job cuts. That's what it's about. I mean, I believe there are figures that demonstrate across the many companies that are proposing all these closures, that there'll be something like 2,000 job cuts. So I'd have to say, frankly, that in my opinion, at any rate, this is nothing to do with improving customer service and everything to do with cutting costs in a move to presumably to bolster the profits that are being taken by these companies, which mostly they get at the expense of the taxpayer anyway because of the franchise arrangement. So a very strong objection, and I think I won't comment any more than that. I think that's
Okay.
I've said enough on that.
Thanks for that. Anybody else want to make...
I just think that it's people who've got some, it's people who are bad eyesight. I'm trying to find a nice way of saying it. People who can't see very well, if there's no ticket office, they're really going to struggle. And in fact, anybody who's disabled really, if they can't go and get a ticket from a ticket office, and people like me who are technophobes, who start pressing buttons and things come flying out, I'll never get a ticket. So I just think, as Steve has said, it's got nothing else, it's just saving money.
Hello.
This is just another example of saving money and cutting public transport services, in that you're making it more difficult for people to use the service. It's not going to improve the service. It's going to affect more vulnerable people more adversely, and it's a step backwards. And I think across the northwest there is a big objection to it. I think we should join with other local authorities who have objected and put forward the various reasons that have been mentioned.
I have made comment as an individual and as somebody who has a disabled rail card. So it's key for me to get as many people to assist at times, because when I travel by train I have a helper. So I just, I don't need to remind yourselves here, but it's not so long ago we had a travel centre at the top of the station, and we also had several windows that were open, and they tended to be, certainly at busy times, big times, fully manned. And it was great because lots of people change and get tickets and get advice. So you used to go to the travel centre. Then that closed, and then and then the windows closed and got the machines in. And then you have to go, I always have to go into the office to get the tickets off the ladies or the gentleman there. And when I read what they're going to do, which is they're going to have helpers, and I'm sure they will, because those ladies and gentlemen there are very, very helpful, although they're now constrained. It's a throughput. Get them through. How many can we get through? It says if you're not very, and using Dennis's word, technophobe, Dennis would have to ignore all of that, and if you can, get onto the station, onto the train, right? And you get a chitty, apparently, by one of these helpers, and then you get onto the train, and then the guard will be really, really helpful. That's if they haven't got rid of guards, you can get your ticket. So it all leads on to me to ask a question, and I put this in my feedback, is when they knock off the helpers on the station top, where do we go?
Yeah.
Because as sure as night follows day, the train company that operates the station, which is Avanti, my experience of travelling Avanti, they don't care about passengers, they don't have to tell the trains on the come. So I've made comment personally, I think it would be in our interest as a town council to make comment, a very strong comment, because lots of people, I know they use only 8% or something, but those 8% will tend to be people that we know that haven't got access to it and need that help, and that's where I'm coming from. So that's, sorry to be a bit long-winded, but I do feel passionate about this. Thanks.
Sorry, there's another suggestion, if you're minded to do it as well. In that, not that I'm suggesting it make any significant difference, but I do think it's still got a value to at least try, and that is perhaps the chair of the committee might, on behalf of the committee, write formally to the relevant Secretary of State to represent the strong feelings of the council.
That's up to the committee if they wish.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would propose that.
I'll second it, yeah.
Are you happy to do so?
I'm sure that we can find a way through that, yes.
The comments.
It's up to you if you want me to.
I think the comments that have come up already, that's going to be what the town council is, how it's going to respond. That could be put into a letter as well.
Yeah, okay. If that's okay with you then we'll send a letter to the consultation as well as to the whoever it is.
Yeah.
Relevant minister.
The name escapes me at the moment. Okay then, so we'll move on if that's okay. 9, to note correspondence associated with planning enforcement, none.
No.
Item 10, to note the proposed date of the next meeting is the 18th of September at 6 o'clock. We've got our meeting in August. I will now close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Have a safe journey home. Thank you, Sean, for helping us out with that number.